I didn't argue. I just grabbed the stepladder. My son, Nolan, was 16 when my husband Derek decided humiliation was a parenting strategy. It started on a Tuesday. Nolan came home from school, dropped his backpack by the stairs, and went up to his room, like always. 10 minutes later, he came back down with a look on his face I hadn't seen since he was 8. That particular combination of confusion and quiet devastation. Mom, my curtains are gone. I went upstairs. The brackets were still on the wall. The curtain rod was still there, bare. The navy blue curtains Nolan had picked out himself 2 years ago were folded in the hallway. Derek was downstairs, putting tools away in the laundry room. I asked what happened. He said Nolan had been caught on his phone during homework time twice that week and needed to understand that comfort was earned, not given. I asked how curtains were connected to homework. He said it wasn't about the curtains specifically. It was about control, about Nolan understanding that his personal space wasn't guaranteed. His own father had done the same thing to him when he was a teenager, and it had straightened him right out. I told him it wasn't 1987 and we weren't doing that. He said I always undermined him in front of the kids. I hadn't said a word in front of Nolan. That night, Nolan kept his lamp off so the neighbors across the street couldn't see in. He did his homework in the dark. He asked if he could hang a sheet instead. Derek said no. That would defeat the purpose. Nolan nodded quietly, which was somehow worse than if he'd yelled. I barely slept. The next afternoon, Derek had a work call that ran long. Nolan was at soccer practice. The house was empty. I went to the laundry room, found the stepladder, and walked upstairs. Then I took down every curtain in our bedroom, both windows, bare. I folded them neatly on Derek's side of the bed and went downstairs to start dinner. He finished his call around 6. I heard him walk upstairs, then silence, then footsteps coming back down faster. He stood in the kitchen doorway and asked what happened to our curtains. I said, "Comfort is a privilege, not a right. I thought we were doing this now." He told me that was completely different. I asked how. He opened his mouth, closed it, said it just was. I told him our bedroom faced the same street as Nolan's, that the neighbors had a clear line of sight from their driveway, that if Nolan had to get dressed in the dark, we could too. Derek said I was making a point just to make a point. I said I was living by the rule he created. He grabbed his jacket and left without eating dinner. I figured he was either driving in circles or calling his brother. It was always one or the other. An hour and 40 minutes later, I heard him upstairs. Then the scrape of the stepladder against Nolan's floor. He came down and said he'd been thinking, and maybe the curtains were an overreaction. I said he hadn't been thinking. He'd just been standing in a fishbowl bedroom and decided he didn't like the feeling. He didn't answer that. When Nolan got home from practice, he stopped at the top of the stairs and called down, "They're back." I said, "Dad changed his mind." Derek sat there, silent. For the next few days, he made comments about how I handled things. I told him the only thing I handled was a stepladder. He let it go eventually. They always do, once they've had to live inside the rule they made.